we shouldn't be apologetic about being Hindus. I don't know how much you've had to say sorry for being a Hindu, but I'll ask you that anyhow. The second is that what works elsewhere doesn't necessarily work in India. The third is that institutions must know their limits. And the fourth is that the Congress, I think he means, has hijacked the freedom struggle, promoted only a few individuals, whereas there are, he says, in every corner of Bengal and elsewhere, great freedom fighters who have not been recognized. You can respond to any part of that.
I'm happy to respond to all if you like.
All right, okay.
Number one, on the question of apologetic.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us is particularly apologetic. I'm the author of a book called Why I'm a Hindu and another book called The Hindu Way, where I've tried to explain the faith as I understand it, as I grew up with it, as people like Swami Vivekananda taught us. And for me, therefore, one of the great things about Hinduism that I'm not apologetic about, but proud of, is the fact that we have a religion which in Swami Vivekananda's words teaches not just tolerance but acceptance. That is, he says that we believe that all religions are equally true. That as the Shiva Mahimna Stotram says, as different rivers flow, some crooked, some straight, in different directions and end up in the same sea, so also all forms of worship and prayer reach the same divine. So for Swami Vivekananda says, we accept every faith. Worship as you like, it doesn't bother us. To my mind, that is a great strength of Hinduism, not something we need to be apologetic about. And I'm very proud when I face my friends of other faiths to be unburdened by the responsibility of believing that I'm embarked on a true path that they have somehow missed. So for me, I think that the strength of Hinduism that everyone has to acknowledge, as Swami Vivekananda taught us, is this idea of acceptance. And that is also a great prescription, by the way, for a democracy to function in, where you accept the other side. On I think you had 4 points. The second one, if I remember right, was this question of, the fourth one actually, was this question of whether the freedom struggle has been hijacked. And I will say that very honestly, the freedom struggle was the Indian National Congress. I mean, it doesn't take very much delving into textbooks to figure out that at that time, the alternative strain, the sort of Hindutva view of India, was represented in those days. There was no BJP, there was not even a Jansangh yet. There was the Hindu Mahasabha and there was the RSS. And neither of them participated in the freedom struggle. Both in different ways actually recommended to people to collaborate with the British. And when the Quit India movement was declared by Mahatma Gandhi and the Congress workers went into all their jails around the country, the Hindu Mahasabha even joined the Muslim League in usurping positions they had not been elected to by becoming ministers in places like Governor Sahab's Bengal in order to dispense power and patronage. So it's very difficult, it seems to me, retrospectively, for people who are political heirs to that strain of thought to suddenly become nationalists, as they claim to be, because I'm sorry to say that they were not. Now, there may be people who, having been nationalists in the Congress, moved on to other political persuasions, and that's a different story. But yes, history is written by those who, if you like, have triumphed in a particular space, and the idea of India that triumphed, the idea of this pluralist India, is the one that dominated our narratives for a long time. Now we're getting another one, and people are free and should be free in our democracy to judge for themselves what is right or what works for them and not. Then your point about the fact that what works in foreign countries doesn't necessarily work here. I actually agree with him in the sense that when we say secularism, we certainly don't mean what the French mean by secularism or even what the Americans mean by secularism. In fact, if you open a dictionary in the English language, secularism involves the absence of religion, distancing from religion, whereas in India, secularism has consistently been interpreted in the opposite sense, to mean that all religions are encouraged and are allowed to flourish profusely. So we have a situation very different from foreign countries, which is why I have always tended to use words like pluralism and diversity rather than secularism. I'm sometimes forced to say secularism because everyone understands that. But in fact, when you look at the actual meaning of the concept, what we're celebrating is the fact that you are free to be Hindu, he is free to be Sikh, she is free to be Muslim, whatever, in the way that they consider best for themselves, and that whatever they are, whatever they do is not the business of the state. It will neither be an advantage nor a handicap if they want to become Prime Minister or Chief of the Armed Services or Captain of the Indian cricket team. And that to me is a great thing about our society. I love it. In fact, I've written about the fact, Veer, that in 1971, when the Pakistanis had the temerity to declare a jihad against the Hindu unbeliever, our army was headed by a Parsi, General Manekshaw. Our Air Force chief in the northern sector, the one facing Pakistan, who was Air Chief Marshal, later Air Chief Marshal, then Air Marshal Latif, was a Muslim. The GOC&C Eastern Command in Fort William in Calcutta was General Jagdeep Singh Arora, a Sikh. And the general we helicoptered into Dhaka to negotiate the surrender of the Pakistani forces was Jewish, Major General Jacob. That was the Hindu infidel army that the Pakistanis wanted to have jihad against. So please understand.
ये है Ideas of India.